So, hey everybody, my name is Konrad Rogoz. Welcome to Truth and Law and our collaboration with the Living Word. We got my friend Dan Alexander back only 3 weeks after we said we'd do something soon. So, we actually did it, and we're going to do a lot more of these. So, hey Dan, how are you, my friend?
I'm good. I'm good. I mean, I want to be completely honest and say this has been a really rough week, not just because of life itself, but just the stuff that I know and the stuff that I'm trying to put out to people. As much as the ball is finally rolling, which is great, it seems like the closer we get to things getting started, the worse it seems they are. Even though everything seems normal in the world, it's like the inevitable things are already in place, and the only way to handle them is to really push the effort of getting it to more people. But there's a part of me that I don't I've how can I say this? I have to play both sides. I don't see myself as Dan Alexander. I don't see myself, and I know how silly this sounds to people, as somebody who as soon as I wake up in the morning or open my eyes from sitting in meditation, I mean that's the best way I could explain it, and go, I've got to go to work today and make money. Like from that point on, everything is make believe. Everything. There's not one thing in the world most people are not involving themselves with the real part of nature, the world as it is. They're living in a paradigm that everybody else is stuck in. And since I've been and I live outside that, just being part of it, you know, being awakened doesn't mean you're just like, oh, you love everything. It's so much. I sometimes I have to really fight getting pissed off, but I mean that's natural. It's real. Emotions should be shown, but on almost an everyday basis, an every moment basis, it's almost like you want to say, why are you doing that? Look what you're doing with your time. Look what you're eating. What are you contributing to? What's your problem? And it's like people don't want to hear any of that. And I care about what's going on in the world, and also I care about the people in it and everything in it. So it's how am I supposed to say these things that they really frustrate me and get me angry in a loving way when you do it for so long and nobody gives a damn, and you're just supposed to go, well, I can't just join in the chaos and just go, well, that's just the way it is. Embrace the chaos. People need it to be fixed now. And it's like if we don't do something immediately, I mean, everything's gonna be fine. Everyone can die, everyone can do whatever. But day in and day out, 24 hours seems like 100 hours every day for me. Like I don't there are times where I can be in a completely quiet space, but as soon as I have to act like a character, just like everybody else that wakes up every morning, they just don't see it to the depth of I'm living a lie every moment. Every moment. There's nothing that I'm doing that truly interests me. Like since this happened, I don't feel like anyone's going to truly understand the depth of like what I mean by I've died and I'm here as a Christed being. That's the best words I can use. And I know how people feel when someone says that, but it's true. I'm not going to just act like it's not true because I'd be lying to myself and everyone else. So when I see everybody doing their daily in and out stuff, it's like I can't imagine that this has been going on all along and nobody else sees the ridiculousness of it. Not just the government. Like there's so much more beneath it all. Like this is an energetic field where we're all living in and we resonate with our names to such a degree that most people don't know, and that's why I'm trying to teach it with the words and letters. But it's so much more than that. The people think that there's this, they give everything depictions of cosmic spectrums and demons and devils and angels and saints, but those energies are things that each of us can be at any moment in time. Like someone who's really good at something, like, man, he's a monster at that. What's a monster? A monster is literally, everyone likes to do word breakdowns and etymology. Mon is MON, one. And then stir, instead of the word start, START, it would be STER, something that is expressing as its reference. So it's the one who basically aggressively is in control. So a wolf that's ravenous and angry, you'd consider, oh, it's like a monster. But if that wolf isn't ravenous, is it still a monster? So if a monster isn't being a monster, is it a monster? What I'm saying by that is people, we people are the monsters. And there's so many people bringing that energy in because they like it. They want to be it. They want to either be better than other people, or whether they know it or not, they're forced into a competition life where everything is trying to outdo somebody else and trying to outtalk somebody else, or I know more than this guy. Like with me, I don't have any questions anymore. Like I don't, there's nothing for me to look up. There's nothing for me to study. There's no videos that make me feel good to watch. Like I see the crucial issue in the world around me with every single human being I've ever seen. And all I want to do is help them understand why human beings manifest into bodies so that we can actually fix the big body we're on for our next lifetime. It's not just that our next lifetime, like me, little old me, it's everyone with me. Like I know that when people say we're all sharing one living energy and you and I are one, I mean that in such a way where there's just a time frame switch in our brains, however we would want to consider this. There's something in my mind and something in your mind that is operating, and it has this idea of time, and it's living. And for some reason, your body corresponds in a certain way to your area and your people. My body corresponds in my way according to my area and people. But that's literally the time idea that we have, the illusion of time, it's not, noon on Saturday right now. Those are names. And because we've done this for so long, keeping track of stuff, we've unconsciously and also subconsciously over time been doing things that are so wrong and backwards and inhumane. And then we say, well, that's how we've always done it, or that's a tradition. And I like it
Yeah.
because in almost everything people are doing, when they come in, they buy their garbage and their junk food. And I go, this is horrible for you. And they're like, yeah, but I'll never stop. I'm like, by saying you'll never stop is basically saying either you don't want to or you're just too weak to really do something for yourself. And when it comes down to the world around us, and you see that the government's on TV all the time telling about all this negative stuff, and people know about weather control and all these things, but nobody wants to say the way we stop it is finding those companies that are doing it and somehow demand they stop or stop them. I mean,
Yep.
it's, we want to go fight it out, but we've got to do something besides sit. And I mean, I love the fact that we're getting more information out to people. And I say this in this kind of stern, kind of upset way because I'm a real person, and I'm not just going to be like, "Hey, everybody, it's great to be here live from Pennsylvania." Like that's not how I feel. I have no interest in being a chummy chum friend. I love people, so therefore I tell the truth. And maybe I'm just a little stirred up because some of the people over this week have just really gotten under my skin. So I mean, I don't want to get off topic. We have a little thing here, and I want to get some interesting things for people to take in instead of sounding like I'm complaining or ranting. It's just when this is real for someone, it's not like I can just put it off and be like, oh hey, let's go play something. Like I have no interest in doing anything but helping people. And there's no money in that. So therefore I have to waste my whole life doing something that means nothing to keep supporting a system that I don't agree with. And if I don't want to do that, I got to sign papers and get in with the right group to get my status. All that crap is just, it's like, it's all another level of an illusion, another level of pretend. It's like, I'm here right now. I'm not going to harm anybody. I'll defend myself if I must, but I'm trying to fix the world because it needs it. And we all know that. So sorry I went off there.
You actually introduced the topic perfectly. This is the problem with enlightenment is that it does cause a really unrewarding life, not because life is unrewarding, but because the people around you are living life in that way. So you can see people not being their highest self, really living not just hurting other people, but hurting themselves. And this is exactly what it is. And to be somebody that comes to a higher level of knowledge and awareness, this is what you're seeing, in the outside world. And this is what the topic is, and you kind of introduced it, is it's about Jesus Christ, it's about the life of Jesus. And it's such a powerful archetype. It's such a powerful, person that is in so many people's hearts. But the question that I always tend to ask, and I'm glad to talk about it with you, because I said this before to you, that it's hard to talk about Jesus without somebody getting offended. Anybody that cares about the person, the figure, the lifestyle, the story at all, anybody who cares will get offended. But I always want to bring up the fact is, hey, don't you think if this guy was around today, don't you think he'd be a little bit angry? Don't you think he'd be angry? Don't you think? And then you could talk about the depictions. I wanted to ask you, about the depictions of Jesus Christ and why he never appeared to be happy. This guy was tough love personified. He wasn't all chummy chum chum, So that's I've brought up like three different things, but I want to just let you go off with that and feel free to just rant because it's not a rant. We're talking about the real things here. This
Yeah,
is reality.
yeah. I mean, what the reality part of it is, people don't understand that it all comes down to not necessarily just a spell and not just necessarily magic in the words, because they're all translated in different ways, and when they're translated, they mean the same thing in translation. There's slight differences, but when it comes to like Jesus, when I try to explain through numbers and letters that everything that is a name or of some everything that has a name is a name for a reason. And when we talk about things like, I'll have to start with Adam and Eve before Mary and Joseph just to show the point. Adam and Eve, if people don't notice, they're A and A-D-A-M, and then there's E and E. Those are on the lower one category, the once category of numbers and letters. I mean, I know you get what I'm saying, but if people don't get it, this might be like foreign to their mind if I say A is, 1 and E is 5, you know. But then when we get to like Mary and Joseph or Joseph and Mary, it's 10 and 13. It's coming into tens and it's 13 coming into their intents. 3 away. We come into tens at J with Joseph and we come into 13, the manifested number, at Mary. But with Adam and Eve, we're talking like energetically active active manifestation. So it's like action, but in spirit. And then Eve would be expressing vital expression in spirit. So one
The
side has
prime forces. It's these principal prime forces, That's why it starts with A, the first two vowels.
yeah. And it's like A through E is the first movement of activation, base, concept, Gaia, or directing through the doorway of expression. And Eve is already like the feminine nurturing part, that is EVE. So it's like expressing vital expression. So it's like that nurturing part. And Adam is like adding to the morning or before the morning. So it's literally putting those two together. And then the apple is then being applied in place. If you eat the apple, you become one of them. And then we somehow became solid and noticed we were here with bodies, so we're naked. You know what I'm saying? Like, people don't understand that those are all parables. Even everyone who reads into the Bible enough knows that there's many places in it says that Christ or Jesus always spoke in parables. Well, the thing is, I speak in what things mean, and I was shown by creation, and I know how that sounds, but I was shown by creation how even the story of Jesus is just another magic spell. It's a living thing. Like, you and I have the living energy of Christ consciousness available to us, but most people don't understand that we all do. We all have the availability to understand why we're in the world, why we're alive. And it's not because we're born and we have to pay taxes and all that kind of stuff. It's literally something so much more inner and spiritual that contains the outside world, because this is the information loop that's going through you and the world. But when you go from Adam and Eve being A and E, and then we move into Joseph and Mary being the JO, the junction, coming into tense, ongoing, subjecting and expressed PH. Okay, so you'd say placement here or potential here, out into the air, male action, shining from the sun, yourself, literally is now hitting Mary, the manifested Airy, coming into 13, their intents. And then the product of those two things, it goes from a JO to a J expression back into the ones category. It's saying to everything intense. Its bottom line expression, subjected underlying subject, is what Jesus means. It's literally what Jesus means. Everything that's living, the concept here that rised, is literally what Jesus means. Christ, that's what Christ means. And when people say they're with Jesus, they're saying they're with what's going on in the world. Intense, expressing, subjects, underlying, or unit of subject. It's as silly as that may sound to people, that's what those things really mean. It's not like it's not all that complicated. Nobody has to keep sitting here looking at a book saying, well, the revelations are coming true. See it out there, it's all happening. But what are they doing to prevent anything in the actual everyday world being here in this present moment? Instead of saying, this is exactly what they said would happen, instead of waiting for it, let's do something about it. that is the will that we have.
Yeah.
If we
Pro-
get back,
you know,
that
prophecy and demonic forces and angels, they don't do anything without people actually bringing it into existence. So yes, Revelations is unraveling and coming true, but it's because the people are agreeing to be kind of the robots and the mechanisms to implement that stuff, where there's a total free will to write a different story or make it fulfill in a different way.
yeah, and as silly as this does sound to most people, it's because they're resonating with a magic spell. They read a book, that information went in their head, they believe it to be. And over time, mineral memory and the spiritual memory that I want to get into, but until I have more than 5 people listening, it's like I can't go deep on the videos I put out, or else anyone who just catches that one's going to be like, I have no idea what this dude's talking about. And it's not that I'm concerned for that. It's just that I know that my message will help people. And if I do it the wrong way, because we have a world that's so picky and choosy about what they like to watch and see, I'm not trying to put people down. I guess we do have choice and we do have preference. I don't. I mean, I don't need anything anymore. Like all the people that say that we need to have a structured whatever, like we need to grow our own food and take care of our community and then start over. Basically, we don't need. As horrible as this is to say, computers, cars, they're all conveniences. Yes, they're good tools, but we don't need them anymore. We never needed them. We needed them in order to learn what we were capable of and learn what we would do if we had those capabilities. And look what we're doing. Can we redo those things in a better way and be moral about it? I'm sure we could. But with what we have now, it needs to deconstruct before it can reconstruct. And it's the pain of that is basically people are so worried about changing. That idea is mostly what people are thinking of. Oh, the world is over, everything's going to end. Everything that we know, the way it was ever known, is going to end. But does it have to be death and torment? No, it could just be sacrificing the things that we don't need anymore in order to make this world better. That's all it takes. And I guess I overdo it because I don't really care about food, and it's not. This isn't something that I tried to do. One day everything left me, and I had to basically in an everyday world, I could literally just live off of. I don't need anything. I mean, I can't even explain in words. The only reason I'm here now is to save people. And I know how odd that sounds to people. Like there's nothing left for me to do. I'm not going to sit and watch a TV show. I'm not going to sit and watch or play video games. Like, and no discredit or no insult to the people who like those things. They're just trying to escape from the reality that's right here around them, helping the people in their world. It's just they don't care enough to even come to that conclusion or to look into anything that leads them to that conclusion. They're just so trapped in not liking the life they're in because since they were born, they were either raised by, in a shitty situation, or they went through their schooling and didn't want to do it and wanted to be rebellious. And more people rebel now just to do what they shouldn't do, to the point where they're doing what they shouldn't do, whether people allow them or not, because I can be who I want to be. So yeah, I feel like I'm rambling and ranting because I say certain things all the time to people. They go like, that makes so much sense. And right now, the spiritual side of me is of course here, but I'm on an everyday basis having to act like this shit matters, paying bills and taxes. No, we need to save our communities from just their lostness, their total absurd level of how lost everybody is. Like I ask my, say something to my parents about our aunts and uncles and stuff like that, and they don't want to hear that stuff. They're looking into Trump and they're talking about politics, and then next day you're going to watch the update on the politics, which is going to be the same old spiel TV show that it is, and people are just so locked into that, not realizing that that's all bullshit. Turn it off, and it's not there. If people come to mess with you or intrude on your life, then defend yourself. But how do we do that without, as a group, standing up for ourselves? And if we choose to break apart and do our own things, we do that. We just live by a code where it doesn't have to be written in some, legislative law to follow, or these bad guys are going to come bang you. It's like we have so much work to do, but where to start? And that's why I feel like people have to understand that there is a specific purpose for every human being, and it is to grow in consciousness. And you can't do that in a world where you're forced to do things that you don't need to do. Like if we're forced to work jobs to pay taxes, we never have the time to actually be at one with nature. We can find spare time, but our lives themselves have all this information of falsity in our everyday, every moment, all the time, conscious thought. You know, like everybody is worried about stuff that truly doesn't matter. Oh, Valentine's Day is coming up. I gotta go get cards to send out to my. It's like, are you kidding? And I don't mean to be one of these people who only sees the negative, because I don't. I see the beauty, but it's covered up with all the negative. It's very far and few between where you see a person who's actually there when you talk to them. They're like, yeah, everybody's just dragging, and it's painful to see. And because I am as sensitive as I really am, I can't just go like, oh, that's okay. I try to uplift them, and then their response to me being negative, even if what I say makes complete sense to them, and they go like, I don't care, or whatever. Like, I can't just go, oh, that's them. Next one, oh, they don't care either. Hey, I can't do that. I mean, that's not truly being real to myself or to them. Like, you need somebody to tell you need to quit poisoning yourself and quit supporting this inhumanity. And people just go like, it's your opinion. I'm like, it's not an opinion. I don't live in opinion. I live in the truth. I see what's going on around me, and I can explain it. And then when I do, they just go, wow. You know, it's too frustrating. It's like this comedy. It's almost like this dramatic joke on me because I've awakened and I've seen this. And it's like, when I say I've seen this before, something that right now isn't in my mind, someone could show it to me, and as I'm watching it, it all already makes complete sense to me, or or I can tell it's bull, and it all matches up with the words and the math and all that kind of stuff. And I can show somebody like, I didn't need to see this. See, it all adds up to what I've been talking about. And they're like, oh, you just think you have some kind of whatever. I'm like, no, I don't. I don't want anything but to actually get people so pulled away from their distractions. It's like everything in life is a distraction at this point. It hurts me to see it. So, I mean, like I said, I just wanted to roll with this today because I've been looking for years to talk to people. Today just happens to be one of those days where energy is foul and negative everywhere around me. So trying to stay, where people are like, keep your head up, man, keep the hope alive.
Yeah.
I am hopeful, but do I see anything coming out of that? No. But am I going to stop? No. You know, it's like, whew. So going into
Yeah.
the energy. Okay, go ahead, please.
Yeah. You called it a joke on you, and it makes sense. I was thinking the word paradox came to mind. And this is what it is you're actually trying to help people. You're telling them, you're giving them the tough answer that they don't want to hear. It's actually the loving thing, and you're not saying it because you're better than them or anything like that.
But I
It's
definitely
because
got
of your sensitivity and your compassion that you're saying that, but then you get the negative reaction. And this is the whole paradox about actually being a good person in this world. And this is what has really shown that we live in a super evil world, because anytime you try to do something good for somebody, it seems like the whole thing crashes in on you. Whenever you try to do something good, as long as you were just living your life or whatever, doing all this crazy stuff, we seem to be all right until we weren't. But now we try to do the right thing, and we have everything just folds in on us. This is why before, in the past, the the archetype, the image of Christ never really resonated with me, because I didn't like, why did this guy have to die for everybody else's sins? I thought that was bullshit. Why is this guy? He's supposed to be the best, and then he has to go die, and everybody's just standing there watching. Like, what is up with this? But this is absolutely what's been going on. Anybody that really tries to change things for the better, everything just caves in on them. And it just shows you what kind of evil energy is ruling over this world, to the degree that so many people now are like nihilists. They don't believe in anything. They think the world is just condemned to be evil because
Yeah.
evil people have been running it. And they've actually resigned to the fact that they were born evil. And religion has done this, but this is Christ had nothing to do with this bullshit authoritarian popisms, talking about original sin and all of these Old Testament laws. He actually came in and changed a lot of that. Yes, he came in, and the woman that was supposed to get, according to the law at the time, stoned to death for being an adulteress or whatever, he basically stood in the way, and this basic compassion. And we're seeing the same thing play out, the same stories now with a guy like you, uh, and other people who try to speak up, say the right thing, they always get attacked, and it's just over and over again.
To the point where they're just completely ignored. Like people just they'll see me, and I'm to be honest with you, I'm not embarrassed as life, but as an individual, it's kind of insulting that the only job that I can find in my area was Dollar General, and I have all these people who come in just like, hey man, and I'm not trying to put them down. This is literally just how they act, and they'll just come in like, yeah man, being so like creature-esque, like, and all you want to do is help them. Like, look at this grown adult who's just loopy, beyond gone, and I feel bad knowing that. Like before, I guess I would have been like, hey, there's just some guy, but now I'm like, look how just lost people are. It's like when it really snaps in, it doesn't just go away. You don't just turn it off. I mean, I could ignore it, but I'd be doing a like I'd be being the wrong kind of person in that way. But I wanted to say, how it's all parables, and well, I can't say it's all parables, but you know what I'm trying to say. They say how God is the word and Christ is the sword, right? Well, what's the sword? It's the applied force of the word. So it's also the concept that rises. The way that Christ in our energy right now is, God gives us what we allow or what we work towards. And the people that are putting in the work, as we all know, are the ones who are controlling the words, the narratives, the laws. And because they're doing that, that is the information that's playing in people's heads. That's why I'm trying to teach people about the word, and it really comes down to, I've heard a lot of people in the freedom movements. I mean, I haven't watched much, but I used to watch some quite a while ago, like when I first looked up Mark Passio to reach out to him. But a lot of the people say stuff like, when I brought up that I don't eat animals, it wasn't because I'm jumped on a bandwagon. It's because I experienced the lives of the animals, and I know how we treat them, and I know that it's wrong, and that's not why we're here. And just because we've been told this, fed death to keep us at our lower animalistic state, and the more people disagree with that, it's like you're just so like clung to the idea that you need to eat the things you've always eaten because you like them. When you definitely feel healthier and better when you can have fresh, good food. But even the companies that own, I mean, I can go into every little detail of it, but there's so many things at once. I don't know which one to point at. Like the poisoning of the crop, the poisoning of the air, that kind of stuff is affecting. So we can't actually just grow food. We need to stop so many things in order to live properly. Our food system would be good. We could eat just plants if they were actually nutritious and they had the vitamins and minerals they could, and we could restore our ground. Like literally, every person should be spending some of their day not working at a shop, not working at a corporation, not working at a convenience store, growing their food and helping the environment get better, cleaning up some of the pollution. There's so many ways that we could do it that it's just like you look out and you see the world is like a trash, it's landfill. Not necessarily nature isn't, but what we've done to it makes it seem that way. And it's just, where do you start? Like even when I had my truck for my job, I wanted to go around and pick up garbage, and they were like, "Well, you can't do that. You got to have a license to pick up garbage." And you're
Yeah, can you imagine a license to pick up garbage?
like, I want to help people. Well, you don't have a degree in anything, so you can't help anybody. I'm like, my heart is here. Does somebody need a hand right now in this present moment? Instead of worrying about, oh, what's the world going to do? Like the world is not in the state that's having problems. I want to help those problems. But if the people in the state aren't ready to stand up for themselves and have problems, what are people over here going to do by sympathizing for them, living outside themselves in a place that isn't them? I'm not saying that we shouldn't have news and about the wars, and there's just so much at once that people don't ever take any time to go inside and see who they really are, just by simple things like following the breath and all that kind of stuff. With the world as hectic as it is, most people just don't have the time for that. If they try to, they're bored because they're so busy to just being able to have instant gratification every moment that they're that disconnected that even if they want to get connected, they don't know how. So it's literally stopping all the shit we've been doing and almost starting new without having to be blown up. So, and like I said before, I was so ready for this interview and talk with you today, and until like this morning, it's just like what else can I say differently to show people I'm not playing? But at the same time, it's not about me. I feel like I'm trying to prove to people that I know what I'm talking about. And just that takes me out of it. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Because I'm like, I have no interest in getting one over on anybody or pulling some wool over anyone's eyes. Like, I'm only trying to help with what I know. I'm like, you think you know? I'm like, I didn't just say, hey, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be difficult and I'm just going to walk away from everything that I've ever known, change everything about me. And I didn't decide to do that. It happened on its own. So now it's like me talking about something that happened to an old person that I just happen to be in the body of. And that makes me sound like some kind of goofball to most people because they see so many depictions of people that were possessed or people that were whatever. Like, I'm consciously 100% here. I just, I don't want to play along with the fairy tale of our actual everyday world. It's a fairy tale. It's been created by people, and it, the people who may have meant well when they wrote laws and started the Declaration of Independence, the forefathers, whatever. I'm not trying to talk bad about anybody, but that hasn't been followed. We can just look out and see that nobody puts their fellow man as an even to them. And I can't say nobody, but very few people, because we're forced to compete. And until we stop that, people that say they know the government is foul and corrupt, and without a government, we got to find ways to have our ways we can spend our money without being, stolen from.
Yep.
Without a government, we wouldn't have money because it's the fake thing that's keeping everybody separated. Like, this is, you are the currency. I am the currency. The electrical energy, spiritual current that is living us is what they're using us for. Money's just this little treat to get people to do it, and they've fallen for it, hook, line, and sinker. So it's like to really see that for what it is, knowing that wanting to help people do good things doesn't get you any money, so you got to spend your time doing something else. Do you see what I'm trying to get at here? Like, it's
Yeah,
totally. Go ahead.
definitely. Two things. I just want to real quick touch on the money. You know, each one of us should be issuing our own currency. Like, yes, it's just a language, right? So we can put down words on paper and then trade that way. As before we get to the point where we can just exchange energy and have like a system of exchange that's totally moneyless. But the problem with money is, hey, it's controlled by these people. It's a system that it's a robbery system. It's a racket. It's a whole scheme of these people that are creating. So if you don't, if and not everyone, if no one is issuing their own currency, speaking their own language, they're living in somebody else's little game. They're living on like the pieces on somebody else's board game. That's the whole problem with money. But many people don't see the money thing is abstract because it all has to do with the mother. It's like we associated with the nurturing aspect. So a lot of people, it's hard to even explain the money thing to them. But I want to go back and comment on what you were saying before. You know, how do I put this? This is why it's so much more difficult today. Somehow it's more difficult having all the knowledge and having instant communication and actually knowing about the stuff. Whereas, 300, 4 years ago, we would have just been peasants and we wouldn't have even known about all this stuff. But in a tragic sort of twisted way, it's much harder now because you know what you know and I know the things that I know. But because we have to do it in reality with our face in front of a camera, and it's not in a book. See, if you were just a character in a book, a person's imagination would have carried this story forward. But instead, you have to play this everyday ego thing. You have to every day work on your credibility, and like you said, you have to not even put everything out at once because then it would just because everything's oversaturated in the internet, people wouldn't respect it. So then you have to play all these games. And, if there was a picture of Jesus out there, probably, 90% of people wouldn't have listened to him because they would have looked at his face and say, what does this guy know? And this is because we don't get to just write our own stories. We have to now be in this mechanical, repetitive, like you said, very creature-like world where everybody's just an animal creature. And so much magic has been just taken out of this world. And you're here trying really hard to show people that you are serious. And the harder you try, it seems like the people are just not going to resonate with it because it's too real. It's too real is the paradox. Whereas if it was a story, or if you were a bullshitter, or if you're selling supplements, maybe, that's what people resonate with. And that's the funny thing, is that the truth is so undesirable, but it's the most valuable thing, you know?
Like all we need is to have shelter and food. Other than that, everything else is a convenience. Some of them are great, some of them aren't. But if a living Christ was alive right now, and I don't want to say this to sound any kind of way, but I do know, he'd be pissed. He'd be having a false count anywhere MMA match with half the world right now. That's what would be happening, because people need something. I mean, I'm not saying they need their ass kicked, they need smacked around, nothing like that. I'm not trying to be difficult, but people need a wake up call. I mean, there's been a wake up call going on for a long time. So whatever it is, whatever slogan you could give it, people need something drastic, but something that isn't going to hurt them physically. I mean, it's going to most people, but until people actually see the necessity for changing the things we're doing on an everyday basis and allowing them, like I can say all this deep stuff soul to soul with somebody, and I'll speak something, and it'll happen like right after I say it. And it's one of those things where there's days where it's like, see, and it's like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting. And there's other days where I think to myself and I say out loud to people, I'll be like, do you see how odd this is for this to be something that happens on my everyday, in my everyday life, and for people to just go, because it's not me. And I'm like, because you're stuck. Where for instance, I'll have something really deep about, say, the store manager and his kids, and something that's going to affect his family and himself and his kids in the future. And he'll know how important it is, but then be like, we've got to set up the Valentine's Day, display for everything. Like, that's more important because we're at work on this clock making money for this corporation, which this corporation is poisoning the community. And when I say that, they are. I mean, it's not like I'm just like giving it an analogy. We're poisoning the community. We literally, most of us go to jobs where we're paid to and awarded for poisoning our fellow community members, poisoning our fellow man, poisoning the environment. We're paid for it because that way they can keep control over us, because we're living in subpar terms, because we're doing it to ourselves in the system that's been created for us to live in. It's horrible, because they'll see the importance of what I'm talking about, but then treat little knickknacks or somebody coming in being like, you don't have my kind of, cheese. And it makes me just want to like snap out. I can't cry anymore. I haven't been able to cry for years. This whole stuff with my kids just broke me to the point where like crying ain't gonna do nothing for me. Like, I'm ready to die because I know what happens after this. I'm here to help people as much as I can, and I don't want to dilly dally around waiting for the clock to tick away. And like you and Kelly now, I'm gonna talk to her after we talk. Like, there's like 5 people in a almost 6 year period that have finally listened to me. The kids that listened to me felt like insulted or left out by their family and friends, so they sort of just don't hang out with me anymore either, even though they know and have seen some of the weirdest, like, real stuff. There's so many things that are true because this guy went there and that guy did this, and there's a historical event of whatever. But underneath it all, what's going on with us in a spiritual level that does transcend the human existence when we die. Like, I have no question about that we live after this. We keep going, and we've been doing this for a very long time because it is my experience. I remember it all. But that doesn't mean that I have every detail of everything in my head every moment. If that would just be too much. So it's like I try so hard to be clean, a blank slate. And then people go, well, what about this and what about that? And I don't mean like with you, like we want to have a conversation here, but like the astronomical things that people will have on their mind as something that they're worried about when the world around them needs people to wake up. It is so much to deal with. And I'm sure you see it all the time too. Like, when you wake up in the morning, I'm sure you probably have a job that you enjoy, like building, but it's not like you want to have to do it because you have to pay the bills. Like, that stuff is real because they've created it, but isn't real in nature. You know what I'm saying? Like, You have to put
Of
in.
course, I should be waking up and talking to people, brainstorming systems. I want to be doing physical activity. I want to be, showing kids how to play football, having system solutions for stuff. And what I really want to be doing is finding ways to make this life impossible and hunt down people who are devising plans to hurt women and children. Like that's what I need to be doing every day. And you know, I could go work for 10 hours and be a little bit tired after I go home and eat. But that stuff, I could be working 24 hours and not even be tired because I'm living my expression. That's what we need to be doing. It's not that, we don't work too much. We don't, we're not overpopulated. We don't live too much. We're living too much in a wrong, toxic way. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Humans aren't bad. We're just living bad.
They're spending their energy on things they don't really truly deeply want to do. And most people just like, how's your job? It pays the bills. It's not too bad. I got a pretty good job. I make a pretty good wage. It's almost like just accepting this
Yeah,
lessness.
just giving up. It's a statement that your life doesn't matter. It's just like, oh, my life doesn't matter. They can have a piece of me. You wouldn't give somebody your arm, so why are we giving them our time?
Yeah. So then when you say like, you're worth more than that, even to me. And until you see it in you, we can't rise as a people. If people just accept this getting by to watch TV after their job, like, what do they expect to happen? Eventually, powers that shouldn't be are going to see that as a wasteful people who are taking up their resources, and that's what they see. And it's like we need people to understand it's mandatory to grow up at this point. And there's too many grown children and children wanting to be grown. It's such a mix match where it's a headache confronting it all the time, but it's always there and it'll never go away. And I'll never give up. I couldn't. I would never want to because I love this experience of being alive so much. I remember not being in the body and wanting to experience. And that sounds odd, I know, but every day when there's nothing else taxing my mind because it's a real world out there and there are real physical things happening. So it's not like that's an illusion. But when I can somehow not be concerned outside me, I do see nothing but the beauty of creation and the creator and God. But this world needs people who care. So therefore, we subject ourselves to being hurt in order to help. It's almost like masochistic,
But it's not masochistic, and it is what Jesus did. He subjected himself. This is the whole thing.
How people say Jesus died on the cross?
Yeah.
Well, people don't seem to understand, and I actually just put a video out yesterday, but I forgot I had it unlisted because I wanted to take a still picture and put the title up
Yeah.
with the thing. But anyway, it's still unlisted, but I'll unlist it today. It's called Questions for the Seekers, Teachers, and Preachers. And it literally says that Christ died on the cross because it's literally the cross between spirit and matter. And he died because when it's in once, identified with it, he changed form into every living thing. How the concept here that rises, if it died, not D-Y-E-D, it D-I-E-D, in order to become identified. See what I'm saying? You get it?
So say it one more time.
If you dye your clothes or you dye your hair, it was dyed, D-Y-E-D. We talk about that
Yep.
in past. We talk about Christ or Jesus died on the cross, the crossover between matter and spirit. He died. He changed into all forms. Each one of us is a Christ because we're living light. We just have lost.
That's right.
We just
And
lost.
and that's the whole thing about the essence within all of us. He's us.
And that's terrible. That the whole parable is died on the cross. Yes, that doesn't mean that they staked him up. That has happened and many times. Like when you understand that we've all gone through this, say like, just let's make up a scenario where in another lifetime, I was living at this same present moment time as something else. Okay, that's happening with billions of people right now, and each one of those people has heard stories of Christ. But at the point where we are now, everybody has their own mind frame made up of that. And if they died and their cells broke off into little pieces and grew over time, over light years, and had whole, I'm trying to give you a depiction of something that sounds too cosmic but isn't. Like our bodies are nothing but minerals and memory, and they expand or they contract. And over periods of time, our spiritual morsel grows. And when we die, our body goes back into the ground, or however we dispose of the dead body at that point, and it goes back into one of the essential elements. And in that element now holds a new memory of something. Say, like if our mineral body goes into the ground and soaks in the ground, the things that eat it don't just go like, oh, I was once Dan Alexander. Of course not. They're just particles of it. And as more time goes on, everything that eats and lives off of those things spreads that energy around through memory.
Yep.
The,
It's
but
it's crazy because what you just described is the blockchain. We're like, we're coming up with new ways, and it's just a digital representation of it. But this is the way it is. So what you're saying is not anything, super crazy. Like people are so in the blockchain and crypto. Well, this is that playing out in the digital money space. That mineral memory, it's a running record, and that thing. It's like it was a part of everybody that had it previously. It is still a new thing, but it is part of the original, of course, going back down to the original particle, the A, the first, the first dot.
yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, to me, that's not a foreign concept, but trying to explain that to people. When I'm talking about letters and numbers and words, like I've seen and experienced this kind of crazy stuff that I'll never be able to say to people because they'll just be like, huh? It's something that when you're there and when it happened, you can't express it. And I want with all my heart to just say the right thing to fix the planet I'm in. That's all I'm
Yep.
trying to convince people to help me fix stuff. And the only way to do that is to say, I say this all the time to people. If we shut down a lot of the corporations and a lot of the convenience stores that we have and didn't have Lay's potato chips and gummy worms and microwave dinners and actually mimic the climate of foods and mimic the climates of certain things that we want to grow, each area, I mean, how many stores, restaurants, and convenience stores are there? Tons. Each one for its community area, the people would gather there and grow their stuff, but I don't want to do it, they'd say. Either way, if they really understood what would be better for the environment around us, we would have no travel needed after a while. It wouldn't just be overnight. Literally, we wouldn't need to transport over the seas, over the ships, over the road with semi trucks, because people would be growing their own food in their community, mimicking climates because we can, not because we have to, but if we need coconuts and pineapples in Pennsylvania, then mimic the climate. Don't have it shipped. Save on the pollution of the planet. And whether or not, like the big story of global warming and
Yeah.
climate change and the destruction of our planet is being over exaggerated or not, we're not going to learn how to be moral conscious people if we don't do the right thing. So it shouldn't have to be this threat of climate change because of what we're doing wrong and because of how the things are being manipulated. It shouldn't take that to scare people. And that doesn't even work. They just go, yeah, look at they're spraying the sky.
Yeah, they won't.
Instead of that, we
Look,
have
with transportation, uh, I'm all about transportation. We should have more transportation, but for the right reason, for pleasure and exploration and getting together with each other. All the roads and all the rails and all the cargo lines are all filled with stuff just for bare survival, for necessity. We're raising and raising our threshold of what we need just to survive as an animal. We need to reduce that so we do need to put a lot of energy out there, uh, but that's not polluting to sustain yourself for base subsistence. It's to explore, it's to meet people, to expand yourself and grow. This is the purpose of we should be transporting, faster and further than we are now, but we won't be able to do that unless we start really living within our means. Not just, we don't have to be minimalists, but you do have to respect yourself and not have this, basically you have to carry 2 garbage bags of stuff just to get across the street, because that's not right either.
and just keep in mind the pollution factor of it. There's cleaner, better ways to do the transportation. If we
Yeah.
did it that weren't toxic, it would be okay. But since the way we're doing it, people will complain about the smog and the whatever. We already have people that have invented ways to do it in a cleaner, more efficient way. And by using, say, a water motor or water engine car, would help purify some of the toxification we've done to the water as it burns it out. I mean, like, I'm not saying that we should have no transport. I'm just saying pineapples from, Ecuador coming to Pennsylvania. We don't need them. If we want them so bad, those industries don't need to supply the world. People who want that in their community area could grow that. And yes, we could travel back and forth, but only because we want to, not because it's somebody's job to supply you with food because you don't know how to supply or provide for yourself. Like, that's what I mean by it. So when I'm saying transportation, yeah, people need to get around. I'm not saying that. I'm talking about like the shipping and the trucking and the diesel engines.
Of
It's not
course, yeah.
it's not about the climate change part of it. It's just about the idea of the pollution, and there's better ways to do it. So I mean, that's what I'm trying to say. I mean, there's so
Yeah.
many avenues to go down with everything. So
Yeah,
I know.
definitely. I know what you mean. I just wanted to throw that in there, and it brings another thing to mind. Right now we transport the way we do now. We do combustion engines. This is the way we do things so far now. Yeah, Stanley Meyer invented a different way. He got poisoned. So like there are better things to invent. We need to go there. But right now our top scientists, the people who are inventing things, they're not inventing those things because there's a system keeping a cap on our actual progress. But this is what I wanted to kind of finish up with, and after this I'll give it back to you, and we'll wrap it up. But I wanted to give the message of progress. This is the thing, this is the way we do things now. That doesn't mean we're forever going to do it like this. We can live in a way that doesn't pollute. We can still be productive and be prosperous and generous, but not be polluting. And I wanted to say, as far as the character, as far as everyday living, I'm not a Christed individual, right? Like I do base things. I have base needs and base desires still. But see, I'm not a slave to this. I'm working on it. And for everybody, who's listening to this that aren't Christed individuals, just regular people trying to be better, there is a progress here. There's an arc here. There's a learning curve that's hard, but it's not that we're never gonna be Jesus, or we're never gonna be, as high of an awareness as Dan. It's not, that's not what it is. You could still be you and resonate with what you resonate with and just be better. Just live in a better, cleaner way with more respect for yourself and others. And that's all I'll say about that, and your thoughts.
Yeah, the last thing I want to say is I don't think anything high about myself. I'm no better than anybody else. I just do know why we're here. I do know God. I don't know how I'm supposed to drop that and move on playing make believe with everybody else because I can't. It's impossible for me to. So like when you said that, I know you don't mean it in a negative way, but it almost sounds like big talk for a guy that I'm nothing big. I just happen to have been gifted in a way to help humanity because humanity needs it. So I just want to make sure that's known. I don't want anything from anybody. I'm only opening my heart because that's all I can do. So that's all. I just want to leave it at that because like I said, it's been a rough week, and I apologize to everybody that I'm not like, wow,
Mhm.
on the show.
No, you've been great. You are incredibly humble guy, and you're the best thing is you're real. You speak the truth as it is, and that's everybody needs a little bit more of that.
Give a
So,
damn. I definitely give a damn.
yeah, no doubt. And yeah, I appreciate this conversation, and we'll do it again soon, and maybe we'll both be a little bit cheery. We'll tell everybody to like and subscribe, and who knows, maybe
Do
we'll
that
do all
too.
that.
Do that too. Check out some of my music because as I look back through them, like I make songs on the whim because I feel them. And then I have so many of them, I'll sit off to the side and I'll find one and be like, "Oh, this is really good." I'm surprised people don't hear this and say this is comparable to the stuff that's out there, and the message is way more meaningful. Not because I'm like, "Hey, look at me," but it says a meaningful message, and people need to hear that more than yo, yo, yo. Let's go do some smut, you know. So I mean, people get a chance, look up some of my songs. I mean,
I'll link a few of them, and yeah, and I'll link one of mine too, and yeah, we'll link some of this music. I like that you brought it up. You definitely have so much out there. I haven't listened to it all. It would take a long time to listen to all of them. So for
so
sure.
much. Like, there's one called "So Much to Do" that if you haven't heard it yet, I want you to hear it.
Okay, I'll do that. Definitely haven't heard that one. Well, perfect.
Well, have time with your family and enjoy yourself, man.
Thank you, man. You too. Hang in there, take it easy, and
Keep your head.
enjoy. And to everybody else, yeah,
Yeah.
to everybody else, thank you for spending this time with us, and hope you had a great time.
Yes, and I love you. I mean
Love
that.
you too.